is before us again. And I believe everybody out there has a New Year resolution. And just as you have yours, various business leaders have their resolutions and plans for the year 2019. So as we move into this new year, we've been engaging in some of these business leaders on what to expect from the various industries. And I'm going to start with my favorite, that's the aviation industry. Now, this particular industry in the 2018 was heralded by the opening of the ultra-modern Terminal 3 airport. Subsequently, we saw the one-off landing of the Airbus A380, that is the largest passenger aircraft, by Emirates, signaling that our terminal could handle any kind of aircraft, bringing us to the top of the bar. Now, we also saw the entrance of 2 domestic airlines into our industry, bringing it to a total of 3 domestic carriers for us. Moving into 2019, what are we to expect? Well, the Director General of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority says there are lots of opportunity in this industry that we should look out for.
CityLink, Starbo has also applied. They have indicated their intention to come back. Then Fly 40 was sold to Royal Fly GH. They have their air carrier license. They're also going through certification. So if all of them come back successfully, well, some are not able to complete the certification process, but show all these prospective airlines commence operations, will have a very, very vibrant industry. Some may have to shift their focus from scheduled passenger service to charter services, executive jets, or air taxis, and so on. And there are untapped opportunities in those areas. There's so much, or I'll say there's over-focus on commercial air services, but there are others which are yet to be tapped. You go to East Africa, Kenya, for example, they have 19-seater caravans which they use as air taxis from tourism spots to tourism spots. We have nice places like Axim, Lake Bosontri, so many beautiful areas, not easily accessible by road. It takes 5-10 hours to go from Accra to go to the Mole Game Park. You want to go watch crocodiles at Paga, you are 10-12, you should be able to hop into an air taxi, go, you finish 2 hours, you come back. We don't have those services developed in Ghana. So there are opportunities for more players in the industry if only some will shift their focus to the untapped services.
So with all the opportunities lined up in this particular industry, that's the aviation industry, as was highlighted by the Director General of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Simon Alote, well, the Managing Director of the Ghana Airports Company also believes that with all these opportunities, passenger numbers are going to grow.
We used to do about 14,000 passengers between Kumasi and Accra per month. However, with the entry onto the market of Passion Air, last month, October, we were able to do 22,000. So we think this has been occasioned by one, the increase in capacity, and also the competitive pricing that we are seeing on the market. And we hope that this will continue to grow. Currently, flights to Kumasi can go on till as late as 8 p.m. and nobody complains, and people are flying that late, which was not the case when earlier on. I mean, flights to Kumasi normally ended by 6 p.m. and everything was over.
From the airport, we are here at the Shippers Authority. Yes, one of the industries that saw quite some activity in the 2018 was also the shipping industry. It basically has to do with importers, exporters, freight forwarders, etc. Now, there was the implementation of the cargo tracking note system. This cargo tracking note system requires that freight forwarders or importers provide real-time information on goods being imported to help the Ghana Revenue Authority plug the loopholes in revenue collection, as well as, well, sanitize activities in the shipping industry. But moving into 2019, what are the shippers expecting? The president of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders will be telling us more on this particular issue.
There must be a governance structure, and it is not a novelty. We are not even suggesting it. If you go onto the unece.org portal, you will realize that because of the things that have happened in other places, they have suggested strongly a model structure for this kind of environment that we want to create. In the absence of the models, you putting in place the model structure, you are going to have ministries, departments, and agencies competing amongst themselves, particularly when they are all chasing the IGF factor. Okay? And when this happens, don't forget they all have regulations backing them.
So a model factor one?
Yeah, a governance structure. The governance structure will deliver the rest. Trust you me, because by the time a policy is dreamt of, by the time somebody thinks about a solution, it will have to do certain rounds. That's what the structure is supposed to do. It will do a certain round before it gets to the decision point, by which time every stakeholder entity would have had hint of it, would have come up with suggestions as to how it could be bettered. So we don't need too many things. Just put in place the governance structure. Let that high-powered delegate be on it. And in most cases, what the UN suggests is the president of the land.
So now let's do some investments. Well, last year we saw a major player come into the oil and gas industry, that is ExxonMobil. Moving forward, the CEO of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Yofi Grant, that we've been engaging, tells us to expect more in 2019, with particular attention being paid to tourism.
Well, infrastructure will still be important. Okay. Agri and agro-processing still important. Tourism, very important. And we have two significant projects in tourism that have delayed, that if they had happened, we would surely have met our 10 billion target. That's the trade fair rehabilitation and then the Accra Marine Drive development, which is a significant and major transformational transaction. But we've had delays because contractual obligations, going through the civil works and all those things take a bit of time.
All right.
And there are our own processes of procurement, etc., take a bit of time.
Okay, but hopefully we should get that moving forward.
Oh, we are well on track. We are very, I mean, I can tell you from where I sit, sometimes I'm overwhelmed because of the rate at which people come in and says, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to do this, we want to do that. And I'm saying, okay, wow, how can we make sure these things happen very quickly?
To one of the most dramatic industries, I'll say, the banking sector. I'll say it's dramatic because you all know what happened. We woke up to news that 5 banks had been put together and merged, and now we have the Consolidated Bank of Ghana. Well, the industry saw quite a number of challenges this year, especially with the pressure from the Bank of Ghana for banks to recapitalize. Fears were that it would end up causing a situation whereby we do not have indigenous banks because most of these banks were not meeting the minimum capital. And talk of drama, even as at the dying embers of 2018, the Bank of Ghana released 2 billion Ghana cedis to bail out some 6 banks. Just when everybody thought, wow, we're going to wake up to more banks collapsing, the Bank of Ghana came to the rescue. Clearly, this industry has a lot to look out for in 2019. Banking consultant Nanoto Champong will be telling us more about this.
In the past, we have described the banking sector as Mickey Mouse banking, where they had so much little capital, that they couldn't do big ticket jobs. Even when they wanted to syndicate, they still couldn't meet. And if you take the Cocoa Board as an example, for the past 10 odd years, they've had to go to London to get a syndicate of banks to be able to raise the capital for them. So now that we're going into 400 million plus, and mind you, the 400 million is the minimum. That is the floor. The ceiling is open depending on the risk complexion that you find yourself in. So now that we've got that sort of money, we are now going to do serious business, and it's a win-win situation, the banks versus the customers. So I think it's going to be an interesting terrain moving on from today.
We still have the MFIs and then the savings and loans. What is going to happen to them as well?
Okay. Now, besides the universal bank, we have 4 more groups that is savings and loans, finance houses, rural banks, and microfinance. Now, savings and loans and finance houses are put together because the minimum capital is the same for them, that is 15 million. The governor has intimated that there are some pockets of problems within that sector. And again, they have had this, the blessing of the government to resolve them. But so once this is dealt with, then they'll move to that area and resolve. Then there are the rural banks. Yeah, rural banks, we also have one or two that are causing us problems, and they will also be resolved. The microfinance, there's a lot of natural attrition going on, in the sense that they had a minimum capital of 500,000, and now it's been moved to 2 million. Now, so some of them are simply saying, here you are with your license, I cannot find 2 million. Or even if I find it, I don't know what I'm going to do with 2 million, so I don't want to operate. So naturally, some are hesitant, you know. But those that have got difficulties, again, we hope that the regulator will solve them. So that is what's going to happen with the remaining 4. But the ultimate aim is to clean up the system and have resilient bank financial institutions, be they universal banks, savings and loan, finance houses, rural banks, or microfinance institutions.
We've heard the opinions of the various leaders from the industries, and for us, we'll be monitoring keenly to update you on issues as they unfold. Reporting for Joy Business, my name is Sheila Tamaklo. Beautiful patterned Ghanaian prints, elegantly designed. Many Ghanaians take pride in wearing what is referred to as African wear because of aesthetic, cultural heritage reasons, and also to boost the business of local textile companies. This is certainly patriotic, but however, there is a problem. About 70% of fabric in the Ghanaian markets with indigenous designs are designed outside the country. This is according to the Ghana Revenue Authority. It is therefore apt to say majority in made in Ghana fabrics are made in China. Okay, so this is Owatredier, this is Subura, this is Bonsu, and that is a confirm. Interesting, all are indigenous designs with very beautiful African, and that's to say Ghanaian names. However, the tragedy here is all these designs you see here is not made in Ghana. These are imported from China. And this comes at a cheaper cost, which is just about 50 Ghana cedis, whereas the original GTP goes for 90 Ghana cedis. So for special occasions, people do come in for the GTP. However, for everyday wear and let's say the casual days, people tend to come in a lot for these imported fabrics. The tragedy here is the high demand for these imported fabrics is dealing a heavy blow on our local textile industries. For decades, the flow of cheap and smuggled textiles from some of the world's largest producers, such as China and other Asian countries, has contributed to the gradual collapse of the once vibrant local textile industry. In the 1980s, Ghana could boast of over 15 companies. Unfortunately, only 2 of these companies are operational and struggling to even break even. GTP and Printex are struggling to stay afloat, whilst Akosombo Textiles Print recently laid off about 200 workers because it could not afford to pay salaries.
Counterfeiting of our designs and the smuggling of same into the marketplace. That is what has led to the collapse of virtually all the industries. We used to have over 15 textile companies in Ghana in the 80s and early 90s. As we speak, as you rightly said, we have left it barely 3 of us. The reason is that almost all the designs we produce, you'll find importers or our traders who would pick this, in fact, they pick the fast-selling designs, not all the designs, the very fast-selling ones, and they send it out. They are able to bring them, copy them, bring them in, smuggle them into the country. As a nation, we don't even have official records of importers of fabrics into the country, and that's a shame. What that tells you is that if we don't have official importers of fabrics, and yet imported fabrics account for over 70% of the entire share of the market, then you ask yourself, where is those 70% coming from? If you don't have any records, official records of importers of fabrics, what it simply means that they all smuggle them into the market. And so that's what led to the collapse of virtually all the industries. And even for us who are surviving, we are barely surviving.
In the 80s, the textiles companies employed about 25,000 of the labor force, accounting for 27% of total manufacturing sector employment. But today, less than 2,000 people are employed in the textiles factories. Sadly, the woes of the sector continues to deepen, as many more could lose their jobs if government does not intervene. In the past, the government introduced a number of interventions, but little impact has been achieved. An anti-piracy task force was established to clamp down on smuggled goods, but that failed. Textile dealers were forced to only import their goods through Takoradi Port, but that also failed. Yet, like another last-minute bravado act to salvage what remains of the local industry and discourage smuggling, the Ministry of Trade now plans to introduce a tax stamp for both locally manufactured and imported textiles, as well as ensure that all imported textiles come in through one entry point, the Tema Port.
As a government, as we are keen on industrial transformation, one of the most obvious places that we have a competitive edge is the design and therefore should be the manufacture of our textile industry. These become critical in what we're trying to do. Thirdly, we know that there is a huge challenge with this sector. Let me give, for example, I am reliably informed that last year, in 2017, only one container was officially cleared for tax in this country. Now, that is just clearly not possible. Why? Because we know over 70% of all the textiles that we buy in this country are not manufactured here. So how is it possible that one container is the only one? So we are looking to address a number of issues. One of them, to encourage local manufacturing. 2, to encourage people to buy made in Ghana. 3, we want to stop people stealing other people's design. If I've taken money to design and you want to use it, come and pay me my royalties, but don't just take it. And then 3, we are not against importation, but when you do import it, pay your taxes so that we can do all the things we want to do with taxes that we need to do as a government, and at the same time help build businesses. One of the things we're going to do when we hopefully start middle of next month is we're going to go into the marketplace, and for free, and I repeat, the tax stamp is going to cost nothing. For free, we will do 2 different types of tax stamps. One for those that have been imported, different color code, and for those that have been manufactured here. So that whatever is sitting in your shop at that day, you know we will give you the tax stamp. Then we give you another 3 months to sell it. Thereafter, we are going to start to impose the law.
But the traders in the Central District are kicking against it due to the high existing levies.
Look at us right now. Can I get 500 million or 1 billion and go to China and order and bring it through Tema? But at least even if I bring about 20 pieces and sell, I can make a little profit and do little things that I'm doing to keep life going. But if you tell us we should take our things through Tema, but my brother, how much are we making? At times, even when we do the exchange rate is even bad now.
It's like you are paying a tax and another tax in a very special way is being added to this thing. You see, when you are working, you are having about 7 to 10 workers, and you are paying a lot of taxes, and then you watch your income and the way you are paying the people. It's like there will be redundancy.
For others, the tax stamp is not a solution, but rather producing cheaper fabrics.
Sasa Omodi high target satisfy ban.
Since the high target was introduced, a lot of young people are able to buy local fabrics because it's cheaper. Our products are too expensive. If we could make it cheaper, it would have been better. Why else will we go to Togo to import fabrics? If we had ATL and Printex all manufacturing at a cheaper rate, we wouldn't be importing.
I don't think say I will go for high targets and me thought the pamatire.
Back then, we still had cheap stuff. All the factories were in operation, like PZ, UAC, ATL, UTC.
Even that time, no cry. Now all factories are working. PZ ye juma, SC Karame ye juma, UAC ye juma, GB Olivanti ye juma, ATL ye juma, UTC ye juma. But still, now I want to man.
And we still had cheaper stuff. When it comes to our purchasing power, we are all not the same. Some people prefer cheaper stuff, so we can't insist that all the prices should be the same.
Quality so and I'm saying, and Sunny ye painting, no, to me, Cassie, Quansonia Manu Yediana, and ye pepe.
Local manufacturers of textiles, on the other hand, strongly disagree. They insist that if imported textiles are taxed appropriately, it will create a level playing field.
If I will support it 100%, we are all for it, and we eagerly look forward to the introduction of a tax stamp into the textile industry. And the reason we support it is simple. Now, the tax stamp is essentially it's an evidence to show that a particular product has paid the necessary taxes on it. So it's going to be very much like what you see on this label here. It's going to be put on the fabric. Why is this important? This is important because then anybody who goes to the market, whether a consumer or a tax officer, or anybody who goes to the market can tell which product has paid its taxes and which ones have not paid their taxes. And we believe that if you pay your taxes on the product, there's no way you can sell at the prices you are selling. And if people are selling at the right prices, we believe that gives us a fair playing ground as a business operate. And we know, we trust in the value of our brand, that even if we are slightly more expensive than imported, we will still be able to compete effectively.
Auntie Comfort also sells textiles at the Central District, and just like the manufacturers, supports the introduction of the tax stamp. She says it will bring about fairness.
Formerly, they've been buying the local ones in volumes. Others have been buying to Mali, Benin, Nigeria. But because of prices, they have stopped coming. So at the moment, they are buying volumes of imported ones. The tax stamp is important because somehow it can bridge the gap between the prices when the imported ones are being taxed properly.
Now, here's a picture of the current duty payments on importations of textiles from outside the ECOWAS region. So, to give you a clear example, here's a document of an exporter who brought in goods worth a total of 117,830 Ghana cedis, 71 pesos. Total duty and levies paid summed up to 82,061 Ghana cedis, 5 pesos, amounting to 69.64% of the value of goods imported. So I have here with me Owachidie, but this is GTP. The same design here, Owachidie, but this is high target from China. So to get an import of how the tax stamp is going to work, now When you are importing fabric to Ghana from outside ECOWAS, it attracts a duty of close to 69.74%. That's approximately about 70% duty. So this GTP here sells at 90 Ghana cedis on the retail market, whereas this is at 50 Ghana cedis. Now, 90 Ghana cedis, they'll say, is quite high. It's on the high side, and this is 50 cedis. But when you add the duty of 70%, it brings the price close to 85 Ghana cedis. And that we call a level playing field. So that's how this is supposed to help the market. Nonetheless, stakeholders say an effective implementation will require government to do a downward revision of the duties charged.
As we call upon the policymakers, the government, in fact the ministry, to really review the taxes that is paid on imported textiles. It is absolutely not acceptable. The duties are way too high. And indeed, it's something that government, if indeed government wants to make this policy succeed, then we need to get our ministry, the parliament, to review taxes on imported finished textile products, because it's way too high. The import duty alone is 35%. Other duties, you add VAT, you add all the several, there are so many other elements built up into the tax component. When you put all together, it comes to close to 70%. And that is not acceptable.
Move to introduce the tax stamp may be viewed by some as a form of protectionism. But in this case, it's rather a fight against counterfeiting, which, according to the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, cost world trade about $500 billion, robbing states of revenues and rendering many jobless, just like the gloomy image of what remains of the local Ghanaian textile industry. Today, with over 2,000 jobs lost in the textile sector, many companies collapsed, and millions of revenues lost, the tax stamp may just be the savior. But the question that bends is, could this be the long-awaited antidote for the dyeing industry, or will it rather strengthen smugglers to sharpen their skills? For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklo.